and I would really appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
Hey, Coos County, hey, Oregon, hello, America, and beyond. I want to thank you all for joining me. It's going to be a very entertaining show, and if you're not careful, you might learn something. Wasn't that from a famous cartoon? I think it was. I think that was Cosby's. Fat Albert. Fat Albert. Yeah, you stick around long enough, and you might actually learn something. You know, yeah, that was way back when Cosby was still a good guy. We've got a lot coming on tonight. I've got a very special video that I want to play for you. It's a commercial for a new effort that we're going to have going forward to kind of change the Oregon Republican Party here in our state, try to influence the Republican Party overall. It's going to be an interesting endeavor, and we've got some really heavy-hitting players who are going to be backing us on this new project that we're working on. And it's called Project 1776, and the 1776 project. What does it matter? The order of it. What does it matter? But we're going to have a really badass time, and we've got some weapons that we can put into the political arsenal and maybe shake up the state a little bit, because the state needs to be shaken up. And I've got a really good guest coming on. I was supposed to have two guests here. I was supposed to have Marty Kuhrt, and of course I'm going to introduce Marc Thielman, and we're going to be discussing some of the things that happened at the Coos County meeting and in election integrity overall. And we're going to find out what Marc's been doing lately. He's not a man who rests on his laurels. He's one of those who gets out there and he's always doing something. Every time I've had this man on my radio show, when I had a radio show, he had something going on. And that's what I like about people, because we're activists. And activists, we have one goal. Activists have one goal. And I'm going to define the difference between an activist, a political party, and a politician. An activist has one job, and that's to change policy. That's what we're here to do, is change policy. And I don't care if I have to work with Democrats. I don't care if I have to work with Republicans. I don't care if I have to work with anybody who's willing to talk about changing the current policy. And then you have the political party. The political party is designed for one thing as well: getting candidates elected. That's what they do. They get candidates elected. And once they get elected, most of these candidates turn into politicians. And what are the two main jobs of politicians? Easy: getting elected and getting reelected. That's the two goals of a politician. Now you know the difference between an activist, a political party, and a politician. Just to educate you a little bit. I hope you learned something there. And I'm going to bring on a gentleman who, like I said, is an activist, who's very well known in this state. We're going to talk about what he's been doing, and bringing him on right now, Marc Thielman. Marc, how you doing, man?
Hey, it's going well. Thanks for having me on, Rob.
It was my pleasure to have you on, because you had said that you watched the last meeting at our Board of Commissioners, and one of our friends, a mutual friends, Dr. Douglas Frank, was at the meeting before the meeting that you watched, and he was discussing some of the charts and graphs that he has presented to show the evidence that there is manipulation in our voter registration, which means there's manipulation in our election itself.
Yep.
And it was funny at the end of the speech, and I should have sent you that link to that meeting as well, because at the end of the speech, the IT guy for the county, now let me give you a little backup about the IT guy. He can't get the audio for the Zoom meetings to sound right. So nobody gets to make public comment over the Zoom meeting because it echoes and has reverb, okay? And he couldn't get the slideshow to play on the screen for Dr. Frank to even present his slides during his presentation. That same IT guy for the county then came up after Dr. Frank spoke and said that the computers, the machines that the county clerk uses is not hooked up to the internet, and there's no way that it could be hacked. And of course, we're all looking at him because we know the difference. And it was like, if the machine has to be updated, someone has to update them. And we know the county isn't paying people to come down and work on that machine in person. So somehow they have to connect to the internet just to do the updates on the programs they use. I should have sent you that, but that was just quite interesting that happened at that meeting. And then you saw what happened at the next meeting.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like part of the course. You know, those things are not an accident. The reverb, the IT guy does that on purpose. And it's classic, what I call corrupt, shall we say, Oregon progressive Democrat mentality. They're accountable for nothing. Nothing
Right.
is their fault. But they will work very hard at being unaccountable when it comes to somebody coming in and speaking truth to power. And the comedy of it is, if you look at the meeting, and I'm not ripping on the folks that came to the county commissioner meeting. I'm not here to disparage them individually. I'm taking their comments collectively because, you know, they're in Coos County is a small county. You guys know each other.
Right.
There was civility amongst the disagreement. I saw civility for the most part. There was a little edgy here and there. But let's be real, you know, in a small county, small town, you might have to run into each other at the hardware store. So, but the comedy of it is it never ceases to amaze me how a Tina Kotek style, governor of Oregon style progressive could watch the same video I watched about a county commission meeting in a smaller county in Oregon and absolutely draw completely different conclusions. So, for example, it's all about the things they say and the conclusions they draw. Ready? They're not hooked to the internet because an expert told me they're not. So we've now debunked your argument.
That's always.
Well, are they plugged into the wall? Well, yeah, they have to be plugged into the wall so we can process ballots. Okay, well then they all have wireless modems, right? Well, yeah, they have modems, but they're turned off and they're disabled. Okay, well, what disables them? Well, we have a switch and a seal. Yeah, but you also have a remote switch, and the Dominion or whoever could come in and anytime. And then their argument is this, and this is what was missing, because your election clerk, she is a peach. Matter of fact, I would love to have a very open forum. She could be on one side of the stage. I'll be on the other side of the stage. She could talk about her master's degree and how smart she is and how she is doing a great job and they maintain our voter rolls in Coos County. Great. Again, one little county of 36 counties in Oregon. It's the populated ones that aren't maintaining their voter rolls. See, these arguments are hilarious. So what I'm saying is it would be fun to do that because it gets tiring. Leftist after leftist got up in that meeting and attacked Dr. Frank as a person. Not one comment. There were 0 comments about any of the statistics he produced.
Right.
I didn't hear a single person say, this analysis cannot be right for this analytical reason. And here's why. You lost them, Rob, at charts and graphs. Okay?
Yeah.
That's where Dr. Frank lost them, at charts and graphs. And, you know, and the whole thing about how he wasn't even allowed to testify in court. Well, I was in that court proceeding. I was in the courtroom. And we're talking about a judge, a magistrate judge, who was clearly uncomfortable through the whole proceeding and unbelievably uncomfortable. And Stephen Joncas had just got the Secretary of State's office shortly before Dr. Frank to admit that the wording in the contract that said all of the data, not specifically specified in the contract, which just so happened to be all of the votes cast records that, you know, they were trying to get made public, right? That's what that data was, and the contract clearly said it's the county data, it's public data, and you can share it. And it was designed on purpose. So then the next plan was to bring up Dr. Frank to talk about how corrupt counties manipulate the data, which is why they don't want to release the record, because the record would clearly support the statistics in Dr. Frank's research and work. So what they did is they decided to make an argument to a very corrupt judge who they, by the way, had met with pre-trial, not with plaintiff, but with the Secretary of State. We didn't get that privilege. And then they said, hey, the judge said, you're right. He's not a political science major. Okay, now I'm really struggling because political science majors are not election integrity specialists.
Right.
Okay. You see the idiocy. It is absolute land of make-believe. Hide behind experts, hide behind because somebody said so. And all it takes is someone to say, well, are they plugged into the wall? And if there's power in a system, you can access a modem remotely, and you would never know.
Right.
These are facts. So I wanted to I'm probably monopolizing your show, but it's a lot of fun. I just wanted people to understand. It's all you got to do is follow up one of these speakers and talk about the previous speaker. You know, the guy just said he wants Rob Taylor to quit babbling on and on. I don't think that speaker listens to the show. You see how this goes? And I really want to encourage people to change up their attacks because they know where you're coming from. If they don't have an understanding, they're going to attack you with hyperbole. So what you do is you turn it back around on them and say, everything you just said makes no sense. See? What was that in Billy Madison, that movie from Adam Sandler, right? Yeah. Everyone in the room is dumber for having heard your incessant rant. See?
Right.
It has that flavor to it. So I want to thank the good folks of Coos County for sending me that. And then I want to thank myself for watching it. And I'm so glad to be on this show so I can get it out and vent. It was insane.
Yes.
Right. The only one who made sense was the county commissioners. The guy running the meeting seemed doggone reasonable.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry. I don't know what your opinion of that guy is, but I thought, all right. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, now I hope that helps. That's my big introduction because I've been doing election integrity work. Obviously, we had an election integrity lawsuit, which was mentioned somewhat vaguely in the meeting.
Yeah, it was kind of offhand, and it was a slight to the election integrity case. You know what I mean? They said it in a disfavorable light.
Well, here's the comedy. So let me just air this out so everyone understands. When I approached Stephen Jonkis way back when, 2 years ago, I said, hey, we need to take on a loser subject. And he's an attorney, as you know, who cares a lot about this country and believes the elections were manipulated and or stolen. Well, he has a right to believe that. And I said, let me help you because they're going to call you an election denier and we're never going to have standing because they've got the standing argument locked all the way. We saw it with all the lawsuits that were filed after the 2020 election. And it was a break in history. That was the first time election integrity cases weren't heard in court. And the first time in U.S. history. Remember Bush Gore and the hanging shads?
Boy, what a mess that was, huh?
That went all the way to remember that?
Yeah.
Florida, U.S. Supreme Court. They had standing. See? But what they decided was that we did not have standing. And I told Jonkis that. I said, look, they're just going to say we don't have standing, but we're going to appeal. And then we're going to go into federal court. And I said, and we're going to run the rooskow on the government. So what we did is we filed the case. It was declared that we did not have standing. We then filed for an appeal in federal court. And the federal court allowed us an audience in the federal building. And just prior to that, I told the attorney, hey, call them and ask them if there's a number so we have an expert or something that wants to call in. And so Jonkis calls the court, dialogues with them. They gave us a public number for people to call in, but their intention was that it would be, like a witness or something. See how this goes?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what happened. Somehow it got sent out to God and everybody. So here we are before federal court. We're limited to 30 minutes. Okay, we have the Secretary of State's office team right next to us. We have 40 people that came to support mostly our side of the argument. So for a federal courtroom, that's packed. And the clerk gal's getting ready, and she all of a sudden she's got the system up, the number up, and all of a sudden you hear this beep, tink, beep, tink. Well, these are people calling into the number from the public. And pretty soon it's 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 people, right?
Oh, my.
She panics. She runs back to the back courtroom. By this time, Stephen Jonkis, the attorney, he turns to me and he says, "Hey, Thielman, I'm going to have to apologize to the court because I don't think that number was supposed to go out to the public." And I'm like, "What? What?" I said, "Jonkis, let me handle this." So I turned over to the Secretary of State's attorney and I said loudly, so everyone in the courtroom could hear me, "Where's Shamia? Shamia Fagan, where is she?" If you recall, she had already resigned in disgrace.
Right.
Well, they're starting to ruffle, and Jonkis is turning my mic off. And I then looked to him and I said, "Jonkis, relax." I said, we're gonna have all the time in the world when that judge gets back in here. And sure enough, about 3 minutes later, the judge comes in. She is red-faced. She is flustered. She's doing, you know how they are when they're nervous, those progressives, right? And then she's got, and she says, "I believe in transparency, and you guys can take all the time you need." And we took 2.5 hours to put all of the evidence outlined in our case in the federal appeals court.
That's impressive. That's nice to get that much time in court, you know?
Well, it's all about understanding the mentality of what I like to say. And I'm going to use hyperbole here on purpose, not directly directing towards your election clerk lady, but I'm broadcasting this to people of her genre. These people are incompetent. They have no business being in power, and they are put in power because they're incompetent. So they literally will not allow their logical processes to work. I'm being told this. I've got to be a professional. I've got to comply. And the experts say they're air gapped, and hell, my cell phone's air gapped.
Right. Right.
This computer is air gapped right now.
Yep.
You and I are chatting away. What's going on? Think about it. So, I mean, I can't stress this enough to folks. Get off the merry-go-round and start asking the tough questions, and then call them what they are. Okay? It was beyond entertaining watching the attorneys for the Secretary of State's office and that magistrate judge literally squirming when we went through details about how every college student in Oregon gets 2 ballots. They started this in the 80s with mail-in balloting. The recycling program at University of Oregon was separating, saying, "Oh, recycle your ballots in special containers." They were then collecting them, taking them to the SEIU offices. We had emails, we still have them, from the SEIU back in 2010, 11, asking people, sending out to their SEIU groups, "We need help with phone calling and filling out ballots. Now help me." Does that sound like an contiguous election?
Yeah.
system?
I mean, and you can trust the kids who are out in the streets yelling "kill the Jews" not to turn in a second ballot from the place they live and from the college at the same time, right? I mean, we can trust them.
Well, of course, because everyone's like we are. We're all good people.
Right.
See, we never you look at your elections clerk, and I'm sorry, I can't help it, but man, she was a classic. And I do believe she is a nice person. I'm not even questioning that.
She actually is a nice person, but boy, when she gets a bite of you, she just digs in like a dog. You know what I mean? It's bad.
Thin skin, man. She's got, come on, put some leather on, lady. You're in public office. And all I'm saying is she is a nice person. she would be so much farther down the road if she would say, I don't agree with these arguments because my inclination is to trust the experts that I work with. I want to believe them. However, I do see the cognitive dissonance here.
Yeah.
Now, she said, turn in a complaint. Have you ever turned in a complaint to the government?
Yeah, actually, I turned into voter fraud, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But
I can't wait to hear it.
yeah, they refused to hear it because it was beyond the statute of limitations.
Oh yeah, you didn't know that?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It was like it's like the time I filed a complaint against a police officer, and then they sent back, no unfounded. And then I said, wait a minute, your policy says you're supposed to do this and this and that. And no one ever contacted me. It said I would be contacted. So I started doing this, and it led to an 18-month. I mean, how many thousands of dollars did I waste of Lane County time?
Right. It's like the administrative law judge. Thank goodness that Chevron deference case finally came out on the right side, because that's what you've had. You've had an employee of the administration adjudicating the cases between the administration and individuals and businesses. So how do you think the administrator working for the administration is going to rule? I mean, really?
Hey, that's how the police do it.
That's how the king did it.
I said, I love your process. You get to have your person investigate complaints, which call you out, regardless of all the violations of your own policy, and then they just ubiquitously declare themselves unfounded. And then when you don't quit, if you don't quit, they're going to attack you personally. They're going to start saying you're a convicted felon, because that's what they told me. You got a ticket. That means you're guilty.
You're guilty because you just have it. Right. Yeah. Like, okay, any of us can have that. It's like the city managers. The city managers do their own job evaluation. I've never seen a city manager get a bad job review unless the council has stepped in and said, no, we're doing this ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yes, because Mike Schmidt, the now outgoing DA down in Multnomah County, Portland, remember? He did his own evaluation. He rated himself very, very effective, very high. Okay. Well, the voters sent him a very different message.
Yeah, I think he missed that one by a little.
In spite of the George Soros money.
Right.
Okay? Here's why: fentanyl, crime, human feces and depravity, lack of safety. And after X number of years, people were even progressives said no more,
right?
No more, no mas.
How bad does it have to be when the progressives are saying this is bad? You should see this. We got problems.
Oh gosh, I just let me count the ways. But
so back to the county clerk. Because in fact, Dr. Frank wasn't even arguing against the county clerk. He was demonstrating that voter registration has been synchronized amongst the counties to the point where voter registration becomes it goes, and back in 74, the counties were spread out. And by the time, they go through voter registration and all that other stuff, the DMV registering them, it becomes a stream. All the counties become one single line. Yeah. And we weren't even going after her.
Well, notice her lack of curiosity. She could have said, that's an interesting point. I'm going to call some experts and see what they have to say about that. And here's the issue. You can get a bunch of left-wing. Look what Biden just did, our illustrious president, right? He said, 16 baccalaureates said that. Anyway, let me translate. He said 16 baccalaureate Yale, Harvard morons, all diehard Democrats, all absolute left-wing progressive nut jobs, said that if Donald Trump gets elected and implements what's already been proven in the past history with a mountain of facts to be good economic policy that benefited the middle class mainly and working class people in this country. I mean, these are irrefutable facts. Black people, Hispanic people, Asian people. We've got to watch those Asians. They're way too rich. Same with those Jews, right? Remember all that? Okay. Right. And here's my point. America does well when middle class does well. So you can't refute whether you like Donald Trump or not. You can look at the economic data, and you have to concede, if you're logical, if you have any kind of semblance of objectivity, and say, yeah, okay, yeah, gas was cheap during Trump. Okay, so what I'm saying is they're worried Trump's going to win the election. So how do we buttress that? Because Biden brought in chaos at the border, instability in war worldwide, war in the Middle East, not peace. Doubled 160% increase in energy prices, a bunch of restrictions, EV mandates, all kinds of things that have caused turmoil, and of course, massive government spending during a non-recession era, which has created massive inflation. So these same 16 people are saying that we have to continue with Joe Biden's policies because they don't like Trump, in spite of a mountain of evidence that says Trump's policies are better for hardworking Americans. And you see the inconsistency there?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
We don't like them. You're not in the in group. It's because they're bullies. Your county election clerk is a bully. That's why your complaint never gets heard. And for her to arrogantly say, you got a problem, file a complaint. Hey, lady, I'll file a complaint. I'm not a resident of Coos County, but I could be. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to vote out of your county this year. And I can explain to people how to do it. Maybe one.
Yeah, actually.
It's easy. You just change your address. You just change your address on your voter registration card. Send it in right now.
Yeah.
You want to give your address, Rob? We'll have those ballots delivered to your house. Now, you keep it
yeah.
quiet. It's not like we're going to tell the public about this or anything.
No.
We would never do that. Okay. And you can collect those ballots. And here's what's best is you can fill them out. Because I'll probably, I'm like Biden, I'll probably forgot that I changed it just to show people I could.
Right.
You'll get a ballot. And then I'll go to Lane County and say, I never got a ballot. And you know what they'll do? Oh, Mr. Thielman.
Yep.
It says your ballot got mailed to Coos County. Well, son about that, Rob Taylor, somebody's got to do something about this. Now, I want my ballot. And they will issue me a new ballot. And then I will fill the ballot out. I'll go to turn it in. And they'll say, Mr. Thielman, you already voted. What? Yeah, you've already voted. Yeah. Your ballot was received a week ago. But I didn't vote. So this is how this works. And if you're a bad actor, you would do just that. Like the St. Vinny's de Paul in Eugene at the fairgrounds.
Right.
They take in homeless. They register them. The homeless are long gone. Their ballot gets delivered. The ballots get collected. We had a wonderful, wonderful young man. He ended up moving to Texas. He was so disillusioned. Hispanic. Worked for St. Vinny's de Paul. And man, he had pictures and broken wide open. Ballot stacks, and they just disappeared. No one would tell him. And when he pushed a little bit, they fired him.
Of course. We've got a place like that here. It's called the Devereaux Center. And that's the first thing they do. They get them hooked up with all the free giveaways from the governments on all levels. And then, of course, they get them registered to vote. And because some of them are mentally challenged, and some of them are druggies, they can be bought off with the drugs, or they can be so easily influenced, they'll vote whatever you want.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing. This is why I'd love to sit with your election county clerk lady. And I would be civil. I would treat her because she is a nice person. I sense that. And it would be hilarious because I would be confronting her with logic like, well, what if a beautiful lady moved from Massachusetts all the way to Oregon to be with some special guy? And they register through the DMV in Massachusetts. So she's moving to Oregon. So she registers here when she moves here to Oregon. And then she gets a ballot from Massachusetts for a national election. I don't know.
Right.
There wouldn't be any evidence of this. Because the government could never be so incompetent. Now, could they? Okay,
right.
Let's see here. Here it is right here. See? Here it is. Massachusetts. See? I hold it nice and steady there. Here. from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
This is the real deal. And it gets better. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts was already notified of her change in residence, and they sent it anyway. The same thing goes on here in Oregon. There are people that lived here 20 years ago and still get an Oregon ballot. We had those all in our lawsuit that she and her cronies tried to disparage. But it gets better. I said we did a lawsuit with the intention to lose. We went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, not because obviously we were hoping the Supreme Court would pick it up.
Right. But
very slim chance, right? Political year, everything's politicized, and the Supreme Court is not touching election integrity. The problem is when you file to the Supreme Court, you write a brief, and you have strict rules, and then you have to publish it, and it costs $5,000 to make a minimum number of copies, and then you send those out, and then they get put on a registry that anyone in the country can read, and that's what happened.
Yep, it's a docket number. They give you a docket number for that, and anyone can look it up if I'm correct, right?
So there's now Secretary of States all over the country. I was contacted by several of them: South Dakota, Indiana, Ohio, some other state. I can't remember. It was Arkansas or Kansas, but I think it was Arkansas. And they read it and they thought the case made so much sense. They were like, "This is what is this really happening?" Well, yeah. But my favorite was when I was chatting with the West Virginia Secretary of State about 18 months ago. And I was telling him he couldn't believe the 2-vote thing for college students. I said, well, check your state. It's probably going on there. Well, he checked his state, and apparently it wasn't going on there. But he talked at the Secretary of State's conference in the Idaho Secretary of State. Idaho, right next door, wants to be part of Oregon, right? Greater Idaho. Conservative red state. Guess what they had been doing? All college students in Idaho were receiving 2 ballots. The conservative Secretary of State finds out about it. He ended the practice. And then the Oregon League of Women Voters filed suit in Idaho to protect the voting rights of our just delicate children who can't just get a ballot and feel they need 2, damn it.
That's right.
That's right. So the Idaho Supreme Court. Now, this is all from my mocked work. So here's the thing. No, we weren't successful. It was, and I've been very consistent about saying we are doing this to lose, but we're going to create a dialogue about election integrity. So your election county clerk kept reciting my court case words.
Yeah.
And I want to confront her about it. She should be ashamed of herself that she fell for such a sly conservative trick. She kept saying, we have to have confidence in our elections. How close was I on that?
That was pretty good. If I would have closed my eyes, I would have thought you were Julie Brecky herself.
I knew it, brother. I knew it. So here's my point. Think about it. Okay. The whole part of our premise of our case was that the Oregon mail-in ballot system, she kept saying, they're trying to get rid of mail-in balloting. No, we're not. We never said any of that. Matter of fact, we even told the federal judge that. No, we want you to declare the current system that has no integrity, has no chain of custody, that can't verify votes. They're lying to you. Okay? They are flat lying to you. You have no idea, Rob, that your vote is ever counted. They can tell you they received it, but you have no way of knowing that it was actually counted. Now, in Florida, they can tell you. In Ohio, they can tell you. They'll say your ballot was counted in this batch number, and then we shuffled the batch, so we don't know what order. Well, that makes perfect sense. They do it in Vegas at the card tables, right?
Right.
Am I wrong?
No, you're right on.
Okay, I thought I was crazy, but not in Oregon. So my point is, what happens is they take those ballots they get from the colleges, they fill them out, and then they look at a ballot that comes through back in the tally room that they only let Democrats in. Have you ever noticed that? At least on weekends when they forget to tell Republicans, which happened right here in Lane County and Marion County in the last election. We have video of it.
Oh, it happened to Coos County. They came in on a Saturday when there were no observers on a Saturday. Well, why do you need to come in on Saturday?
No. Well, Were Republicans invited, Rob?
No, in fact, nobody was. They didn't
What?
allow anybody.
Well, I'm sure there was a legitimate reason. After all, they're experts.
They're experts.
And they're never bad actors, and they would never do anything wrong.
Right.
Okay? Look, that's the comedy of it. Like the lady in your county commission meeting, she said, I used to vote in person, and it was a pain. And then I got my mail-in ballot, and it was like heaven, and I could just fill it out, and I could take my time and really research and do a good vote. Okay, lady, we're not saying you can't still do that.
Right.
What we're saying is you have to prove who you are. You have to have ID to get your absentee ballot. It will be sent to you, and then you have to turn it in at a certain time. And it will be processed with a chain of custody. Hello?
Well, and then you've got the Democrats saying poor minorities, they just can't get IDs. I don't know what the problem is, but the poor minorities can't get IDs. And I'm like, that is such subtle racism on a level. It just blows my mind.
Well, I happen to know a minority person. I just signaled her. I said, hey, go get your ID right now. And we're going to see if she is African-American. I'm going to warn the audience. She's just going to pop her head in real quick so we can verify for ourselves that she is clearly a minority member of our country. Okay. This is Rayla Campbell, by the way. Rayla, you are indeed a minority?
I think so.
Okay. Does she look like a minority? Well, I'm thinking.
She does. She's
She
a
does.
beautiful minority.
You're not supposed to have that. Oh, what the?
I got two.
Unbelievable.
They told me that was impossible. You can't
Incredible.
do that.
Man, I bet you're able to buy groceries at Walmart too.
Man. You know, it's
You buy alcohol with that?
Do they take signatures? Oh my God.
Oh, there's Massachusetts. There you go. Anyway. Okay.
Oh,
Look,
Lordy, Lordy.
hey, look, we're having too much fun with this, but and yes, we're making light. And you want to know why? It's how we stay sane.
It's how we stay sane.
So, but here's the beauty of it. Idaho, the entire state, got rid of 2 ballots to college students. The Idaho Supreme Court upheld the authority of the Secretary of State's office to do that. And it told the League of Minority Women Voters of Oregon, who obviously were upset. They said, look, you're a voting advocacy group, right? Yes. Well, great. The Secretary of State just changed the rules. So now college students are only going to get 1 ballot. So go out and educate all the kids about their 1 ballot.
Right.
And suddenly it's hilarious because reality just smacked them in the face. Because what are they going to do? You see, guess what they didn't do and aren't doing right now? They're not out in Idaho telling college students about the 1 ballot. Why not?
Wait a minute. Why not?
I don't know. I thought they were an advocacy group. I'm sure the college students are confused. In college, I did a lot of 2-fisting where you had something in this hand, something in this hand. So they got a ballot in this hand, and then they're like, oh.
I got a degree in cake popping, man. I can tap a cake like nobody's business.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. So, think about the shock these poor college kids are in. And what do they need? They need people, good leftist progressives, to come in and tell them how to handle 1 ballot. That's what they need. And your election integrity lady clerk or whatever, what is it? Your
County
elections clerk.
County clerk. She's actually a county. She's an elected official. I don't know how, but it happened.
Yeah, I wonder how. Anyway, so here's my point. What I wanted to say to her, had I been there, because I was watching the video in past tense, of course, but I would have said, simple, hey, if you really want to bridge the gap between those who are concerned about what Dr. Frank brought up and want a conversation about it, that's what I think the commissioner said they would do a work session.
We plan on a work session in September, and when I get a date, I'm sending it to you.
Okay, well,
then I'm going to send you some gas money, okay?
Just saying. Don't worry, I can swing it. I got Battleground. We raise money. I would love to come down to that. I'll bring Rayla, and we'll come down and have a good time. And not to disparage people on the left or people who are defensive of the current mail-in balloting system.
No, actually, you know what, Mark? I want to find out. You know what I mean? I've seen the evidence, but I want to be sure, 100% for sure. So I'm willing to listen to her experts, our experts, and find out for ourselves, because I think you and we want the truth. I mean, no matter how it falls, we want the truth.
Well, the comedy of it is their integuous system collapses quickly with simple logical, when you allow logical questions to be aired and you allow them to be engaged. In other words, she would actually have to answer some of those questions. Why do you believe firmly that college students need to get 2 ballots when regular citizens get 1? What? Help me understand. They can't tell you. They come up with the stupidest, the most inane arguments. Well, what if they're out of state? And what if they're going to be home? They may not even be in the state, and then they won't be able to vote. But if they're home, they can fill out their ballot and they can put it in the mail, and their voice will be heard. It's like, okay, well, how many people are in that situation? And is that something that the students were saying they needed, or is this something you decided they needed and imposed? And I'll tell you what it is. It was not something the students advocated for.
Right. And you know what the funny thing is that they're getting ready, and I don't think he's going to give up power, but I think Biden, they want to dump that guy and put someone else in besides Kamala Harris, yet Kamala Harris and Biden won the primary. So they're talking about being voter, denying voters, destroying democracy. Well, they're trying to destroy democracy, getting rid of the brain dead moron they put in as in the primary. So well, I don't know.
Technically, Biden is not trying to destroy democracy. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Barack Obama.
True.
But
right.
Let's be real. Joe's a good guy. Joe's our friend. He's been around a long time. He and I served together 2 terms, right? Yep. Hey, Joe, get the hell out. And here's why. Barack Obama loves power more than he loves Joe. Okay? Your election clerk cares more about how she looks and her reputation than really doing her job and having what ought to be an innate curiosity about how to make the Oregon current ballot system better. I want to know how many times she stood up in her county clerk, election clerk meetings with the Secretary of State's office and said, I don't think this policy is a good idea. I think we should have full custody of our own elections. What if they allowed you, Rob, to vote in person if you wanted to without having to drive to the county seat? Because, last I checked, Coos County is somewhat sizable and somewhat remote. I've been there.
It is sizable, but even in New Mexico, we had to go a fair distance to vote in person. And when I left, you still had to vote in person. And New Mexico has some shitty weather, okay? So it's either in May, which is 104, or it's in November, which is 20 below. So, that's the high desert for you.
Well, there you go. But here's the beauty of it. You could just create a bunch of voting precincts, and then you could give people the option to vote in person. Think about what that does to people who believe in voting in person. There's a large number of them in Oregon. It may not be a majority, but it's a huge number. And where's the noise coming from? And what would an election clerk do? You want to listen to your constituents, both the majority and the minorities.
Right.
Just heard from a minority right here, didn't we, sweetie? It's so good. I'm so glad you were here. And so my point is, if they really believe the poppycock that she said in that meeting about how, I will genuinely look into your complaints. I will so sincerely. Well, the police said the same thing. We take complaints seriously. No, you don't. No, you're not gonna. What they're gonna do is they're gonna call the election county clerks. They're gonna talk to the Secretary of State attorneys in the Justice Department. The second you file election complaint in Coos County, you're now taking on the Department of Justice in Oregon.
Right.
Okay. That's what you're taking on.
All of them appointed by Democrats, and
yeah.
A lot of them from the Democrat governor who's sitting in office right now.
And none of them who are allowed to think. I mean, look, I disrupt a lot of legislation. You know that.
Yeah.
When I was running for governor, I got called by this group saying, you've got to stop this bill. And it was a bill that would allow a non-governor, like a county commissioner, to declare a minor emergency, a micro emergency. I call it micro merge. Okay. So let's say you had a windstorm in Coos County. Not that that ever happens.
Not here, no.
Never. It's only like twice a year. So you have a big bad windstorm and trees are down and power's out. And so what they want to do is pass a bill that said the county could then mobilize volunteers to serve the needs of people and open up shelters and clear trees and do all that. But they didn't have to pay the volunteers because they're volunteers, but they had to provide them liability insurance and in case they got injured while volunteering. So this bill was designed to allow people to volunteer without liability to the state. Some idiot moron from the University of Oregon thought this was a good idea. And I couldn't believe it when I found out that the bill passed the House, Oregon House, and was going up to a hearing in the Senate. No, this is a real deal. They come to me and I said, I don't want to do it. They called for 2 days. Finally, I said, fine. I'm stressed out. I'm running for governor. I'm trying to keep school open in COVID. Remember, while I was battling the governor and state, I thought, I'll just get on and I'll testify real quick. So in my 4 minutes or whatever, I think it was 4 minutes, I said something that no one else had said. I said it was so good because Cedric Hayden, the rep from Douglas County, had spoken in opposition,
Right.
and they blew him off. And I said it was so good to hear from Rep Hayden. He made a lot of sense. I said, but even more so, it was incredible to hear the Department of Justice attorneys come in here and violate the very rules of this body. They have one job under statute by which they must tell you one thing. Is this proposed legislation constitutional or not? Instead, they came in and told you what a good bill it was, which means they failed in their job and they're not objective and they're not advising you on the law. And I'll tell you why they're not advising you on the law. They're not advising you on the law, and I'm paraphrasing because I was a little more colorful, is because they're not telling you who gets the money. See, what this bill is really about is about slave labor without liability. You declare a micro emergency, so now you're decentralized from the governor. You can declare multiple ones a year. You get money automatically for that under this legislation, and then you don't have to pay it to anybody except unless somebody gets hurt, then you pay their hospital bill. This is a true story. Now, it had already passed one body. It was moving through another. That baby was going. Did you ever hear that bill pass? Have you ever heard of it, Rob?
I haven't even heard of it. So
Nope.
That was a new one on me.
Now, my campaign manager was videoing me, so I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere. People can look it up. I mean, I was literally in a flannel like this, looking down into a chair, looking somewhat annoyed.
We call that formal wear here at Coos
Yes.
County.
Well, and I was annoyed because I was like, this is what the heck? It's so bad that we had a system that would advocate for the indentured servitude. I guess that's a PC term, right? Slavery, government sanctioned, but it's okay if it's an emergency, Rob.
Right.
It's okay to exploit people as long as you fix their broken bones. I mean, this is the mentality that guides our mail-in balloting system, and it absolutely has to stop. And they've created a mechanism so that it's very difficult to vote them out of power.
Yeah.
Didn't you have a county commission race that didn't get decided for like 3 months after the election? I mean, how long was
Yeah,
it?
it was a long time. It was like 6 weeks before we finally got that sucker settled down. And you got to remember the county clerk who was before the county clerk that you saw speak at that meeting was chosen by the two commissioners who were up for election, and they picked the chair of the Democratic Party to be the county clerk. And then they were mad at us because we were calling foul.
Okay, this is my point. Now look, you have to be a bold-faced moron to not see the obvious tripwires and landmines that decision would make. But
Right.
Why did they appoint her? Because they knew she would be lockstep and guardian to what the outcomes that they wanted, and she did everything in her power. Okay? Wasn't he ahead by 800 votes, but only won by like 157?
He won by just a couple of hundred. Yeah, it was just a couple of hundred. And it's just because he beat the percentage. I believe
they couldn't come up with enough names to cover for Melissa Cribbins, his challenger. So they just
they could have, but you guys were watching.
We were watching. That was a problem for them.
Did you know that these same people, this Democrat appointee, she advocated up in the halls of Salem to allow votes to be tallied 3 weeks earlier than election day, so we can start counting ahead of the election. Did you know that they do that in Oregon?
Wow, she did that?
Yeah,
Dee Dee Murphy?
Oh, well, I don't know if she did personally, but her groupies did. And I guarantee you she was all for it. Why do you think they put her in there? But it gets better. So you know why they passed that law? Show you what lying sacks of something these people are. We've got to be able to tally because our population is growing and we have to start counting early so that we can give results on election day. How many weeks before you had results? Because you said
it was like 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, it was a long time.
No. You have to add the other 3 weeks. It was 7 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. You see my point?
Yeah.
These people should not be running elections. They do not have integrity. They have created a system that it cannot be held accountable. Now, let's say, for example, I don't know. There was a family and 7 teenage kids, 20-somethings, all living in the same neighborhood, but all their ballots still came to mom and dad's house.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is a real story, but it's a real story. And, mom didn't want to waste those votes. I mean, those are ballots, baby. So she called the kids, hey, I'm going to fill out your ballot for you. Do you trust me? Oh, yeah, Mom, go ahead. I trust. Hey, Mom. Yeah, sounds good, Mom. Just, whatever. Okay. And Mom just signed all their names.
Yeah.
She's done it for years. And guess what? They all get counted right here in Lane County. Now, that's a good mom, Rob. That's a mom that supports democracy. She's blue as the sea. And she's left of the progressive. She makes Joe Biden look like Donald Trump.
Right.
This is my point. It's not an integuous system. Oh, sorry.
You were reading that comment, weren't you?
Oh, Marbury versus Madison. Very familiar with that one. Okay, but here's the whole point. They won't accept Marbury versus Madison because they have many other court precedences that are corrupt that counter that. Because you can't define what repugnant is. You know what's repugnant? Donald Trump. That's what they'll say.
Right. He's a Nazi. He's Hitler.
Yeah. And I appreciate the comment because it's like opening the window, this comment, and having fresh air come in. You know what I'm saying? To the back sweatshop. It's like,
you know who provided that fresh air? That was Samantha Frost, and she's running for county clerk of Douglas.
Go, Samantha. Thank you, Samantha.
And I'll tell you what, they've got a Republican county clerk there, unlike our Democrat here in Coos County. And he's almost as bad, if not worse, because he pretends to be a good Republican. And it's damn scary, the things I've seen this man do. And I didn't know how bad the county's shape was in with some of the shenanigans that are going on.
Well, and again, when you have no accountability, you don't have statesmen anymore.
Right.
We have activists on both sides. And like in your county commission meeting, I felt like the commissioner, the chair, was trying to have civility and structure to the meeting. I could tell he got a little grumpy at the end there because people civility had broken down, right?
Right.
But look, he's like a fish out of water, man. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It is a riot. And did you ever notice that you can talk as long as you want in most of these county commission meetings, unless it's about election integrity, then you get 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
See, so much for democracy. But you see the flavor of it. I want people to understand. When I say that story about this mother, it's absolutely 100% true. And how can
that happens a lot? That happens a lot.
You mean when you allow take-home ballots to go taken home, that maybe mom or dad, it's almost like, remember when they got rid of hunter safety where the kid had to take their own test and they had to go to little classes, then they put it all online?
Yeah.
And it's funny because all my kids started passing their hunter safety courses. I don't know how that happened.
Amazing.
It's like I turned the computer on and suddenly their certificate was there. And I was an expert. It's like I knew the answer to every question on that test. I have 9 kids, so maybe I might have taken it a few times. But do you get my point?
Yeah.
My point is that our Oregon's current structure with the centralized accounting and the fact that they do adjustments in the middle of the night, and Dana Hyman Allen and what's her name, the gal that ran for Metro, May. Anyway, they had a case because she was staying up all night for every update, the two of them, and they were recording and watching their ballot counts go backwards. See?
That's kind of amazing. How do they go backwards? How does that happen?
Well, it can't. And they had screenshots. The evidence was so damning. And the county did the same thing. File a complaint. So they filed a complaint. Oh, we're going to be transparent. We're going to take it very seriously. And at the end of the day, the county said, you guys need to get a lawyer if you want us to answer this question.
Right.
That came from Shamia Fagan's office because the Secretary of State's office crapped their pants. It was just after the Washington County, Tim's lawsuit, right? The big shenanigan with Dr. Frank there not being a political scientist.
Right.
And the political heat because the election in Clackamas County was all screwed up simultaneously. And what I'm getting at is that question is still completely unanswered today. Why?
That's a legitimate question. And that's what I told Marty. We need to come up with all these questions that this county clerk here in Coos County kept saying, if you got a question, ask me. And we've asked them, and boy, to talk about the runaround we get. I told him, I said, we need to get those 20 questions, send them to her, and then confront her at one of the commissioners' meeting. Because,
well, let me give you an example. I was out on my tractor over in my neighbor's field, mowing the field. That's what I do. I help the neighbors sometimes, right?
We call that a limo here in Coos County.
Oh yeah, they don't have a tractor, and I'm like, fine. I got a 1954 Ford. Sure, I'll come over. I'll mow your field. Their fridge called my phone. Now,
they got one of those smart fridges, huh?
How could their refrigerator call my phone? What's up with that? It sent me a message. Something about needing like something cleaned or something, like the dust or something. And I only know about it because I asked him about it. I said, what's this? Yeah. He's like, oh, that's my refrigerator. How'd you get that? I don't know. But my phone linked up to his Wi-Fi because he didn't have a security on it. And his fridge
your refrigerator is messy with my phone, man.
It gets worse. He said to me, that should not happen. He had no clue, just like your election clerk.
Right.
You have no clue if somebody went into your machines and hacked in through the wireless that's supposed to be off but isn't. See?
In 1996, Mark, I was a supervisor for the largest optical production lab in New Mexico. And I had machines that were fully automated. This is in 96. And before I even got to work, one of the machines would wake up, and down the assembly line, it would wake up the other machines because it would contact that machine and then wake that next machine up all the way down the line. And by the time I got there, the machines were ready to be calibrated for the whole day's work. And, people who think that this is not going on, this was happening in 96 before we even had shit that's going on today.
Yeah, well, and so this is my point. And here's the thing is, if your election clerk was listening right now, she'd be crapping her little drawers.
Yeah.
Because she would be taking this as a personal attack on her. This is not a personal attack on her. All we're saying is she has no safeguard. There is no process to protect the mail-in ballot system in Oregon from these processes. And she can't say they're air gapped because our phones are air gapped. See my point?
Right.
And that's the power of this. So that's what our lawsuit was about. And it was a lawsuit. Yeah, it cost, I don't know, it was like 50, 60,000. And we did a second one on the surveillance with Luke Ballant because he was brought up in your meeting, Mr. Luke Ballant, second in charge of Secretary of State's office. This guy is an absolute flaming wacko. He makes AOC look reasonable. Okay. And we deposed him at the Justice Department. And it was hilarious because it was like all tight security and stuff. And he was talking about, he mentioned that the lawsuit, that it was all debunked. My lawsuit.
Yep.
Even though my second lawsuit, I was also suing him, saying you don't get to surveil us because you're being speculative. In other words, I was saying the government can't surveil you without your permission because they speculate that you might be bad. Okay. But by the way,
we have rights against that, I think.
Well, we dismissed the case fine because the U.S. Supreme Court apparently sided with the government on that.
Right.
But guess what? You don't have standing. I don't have standing, according to the what do you call it? The circuit judge, because you guys are talking about your harm that you're alleging is speculative, that it might have a chilling effect, even though you're a radio host and you could now be turned into the FBI if you say the wrong thing. Right. See how this works? Obviously, we modeled the chilling effect in this thing. I mean, imagine what we would be saying, Rob. Think about what we would be saying if we were worried that we were being surveilled by Luke Ballant in the Secretary of State's office, who, by the way, is literally one of the dumbest human beings I've ever sat in a room with. I stood there and I thought, okay, I'm going to try to jump into his brainwaves and mimic his thoughts. And it was a cross between Homer Simpson and a fentanyl-wasted, dribbling idiot.
Oh.
It was fascinating. And here's what Mr. Ballant said. He said that he's never experienced, and he talked to every Secretary of State in the country, and he never received any evidence that anything of impropriety was going on regarding mail-in balloting. Well, obviously he didn't talk to the Idaho Secretary of State. But right. He then said, so then we took a pee break, and Steve Johnson and I are in the men's room because that's the only room that's not bugged in the Justice Department, right? It's tinfoil hat. I said that for humor. I don't really believe that, but it was funny. Get it? So we go to the bathroom. It's not bugged. And I'm telling, of course, I'm making the lawyer laugh. Joncus is laughing. And I said, hey, ask him why he feels so strongly that the government needs to surveil all of us regarding election integrity issues. So Joncus goes back and, I don't know why he didn't ask that. That would have been my first question, but I'm not a lawyer, right? They like to build. They like to build. So he asked him, and Luke Ballant said, well, we have to maintain the confidence of the public in our election, our mail-in balloting system. Rob, that's the entire argument of our lawsuit.
Right. The term is election integrity. That's what we're fighting for, dumbass.
So, and he conceded that there was nearly half of Oregon or more that either had some doubts or a lot of doubts about the integrity, and they needed to restore confidence. Well, here's the comedy of it. The word confidence was put in that lawsuit on purpose because we know the animals we're dealing with.
Right.
And the left they read that case. They read the Supreme Court case. They got concerned after what happened in the appeals for 2.5 hours. They went back and had a huddle. And then they said, we've got to adopt this language, which we were way ahead of them. So, and I told Steve Joncus, the attorney, I said, you watch, by the time we get to the Supreme Court, we're going to start hearing radio shows all over the country talking about confidence in elections, confidence in mail-in balloting. And You go check it out. You're a radio guy, right? You're a podcaster. It was everywhere. Glenn Beck, the guys that took over Rush Limbaugh, whatever their name is, Clay and Buck. I heard it on all kinds of them. Lars Larson, you name it, just to throw out some competitors for you there, Rob. And it was nationwide. That's called winning.
Right.
Because it's a narrative battle with these people.
you controlled that narrative for that situation, and that's what they do all the time. It's like they'll come up with a slogan, and from the Monday morning all the way to Friday afternoon, every commentator on the left has repeated that slogan at least a dozen times. We've heard it over and over again. Misinformation and disinformation. That's all we're spreading. That's nonstop.
Well, but look what their answer to Luke Ballant's answer to election integrity verbiage they don't like. His answer is turn them in, shut them down, put out counter narratives. That doesn't build trust, nor does it build relationship. That is like Nazi level, gulag, Solzhenitsyn style, take over a communist country crap. And what do we want to do? We want to have a dialogue, not to make it personal, but to say, hey, we got to think about people on all sides of this perspective. Would it increase confidence in the Oregon election system if the Oregon election system also invested in opportunities for people to vote in person in a convenient way, if they felt better about doing that? And think about what that would mean. Both sides of the argument would feel validated.
Yep.
And what harm is there? And they're saying, that Florida system, they had a record number of mail-in ballots, and DeSantis won by 60 some odd percent.
Mm-hmm.
They processed all their ballots, but they were not allowed to count them. So they put them in batches. They said these voters are in this batch, and then they shuffled the batch. So now we don't know the order, right? No clue. All we can say is your ballot was counted because it had 100 ballots in this batch and 100 ballots were registered through the counting ballot machine. We can't tell you the order. We can tell you the order when we collected by ballot or by envelope, but we can't tell you the order when we put it through. Plus, we mixed it in with in-person ballots. Now, what does that do? It restores confidence. And now, that's what we told the court. In our U.S. Supreme Court brief, we said, here is the rubric, Supreme Court, that you need to impose nationwide in all federal and state federal elections, which are always mixed with state elections, so all elections. We'll know we've reached the right level of integrity, balance in a system of opposing views and methods when all of the people that voted for this person and the people that worked for them and donated them and believed in them, and all the people that voted for their opponent, so that both the winner and the loser, everyone agrees that the process was integrous and reasonable and fair. We don't have that.
No.
We do not have that in Oregon. And
if you ask to have it, you're trying to suppress the voters.
How?
Yeah, how?
Explain it to me. Please, somebody help me. Yes, I'm serious. Like Lucy, explain. Right. They're saying what they're saying. I just don't think they think it doesn't mean what they think it means. You know what I mean? Yeah, you keep saying that. So anyway, but we're dating ourselves, aren't we, with some of this stuff,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Jeez, I know. My mom used to punish me by making me watch I Love Lucy reruns. Oh my God. Lucy, you have some explaining to do. Oh dear. Okay. Never say that again. All right. Where was I? So here's the thing. I hope you got a flavor of some of the work that we've been engaged in. Now, are we going to run another lawsuit? Okay. Because we got all these ideas and everyone's like, you got to do another lawsuit. We are raising money. And yeah, we're going to file another lawsuit. And I'm working on some of the stuff on the website for Battleground. We're going to get things updated. But I think
people can donate. Go to Battleground Oregon.
Thanks. That's not the purpose of the show. But
we love that stuff.
Yeah, you can. You go to battlegroundoregon.org and you can donate if you want. But because it all helps. See, all Republican politicians that are in office now are rhinos. Yes, because they get paid lots of money. My favorite. You gotta remember, I was up in the legislature since 2010. Okay, and my favorite was once the first walkout, which I might have advised on that back in the day. I might have said in 2015, you guys need to filibuster and then walk out over the minimum wage thing with Ted Ferrioli and all that back in those days. And it only took him a few years. And then Bert Sugar, literally on the eve of the walkout, I was up and getting screamed at by Democrats. And he grabbed me in the stairwell and said, "Hey, Mr. Thielman," we went into Senator Thompson's office, and he locked the door. And I thought, man, they're taking me out. I'm not getting out of here. What the hell's going on? Why am I getting screamed at by Arnie Roeblen, the Democrat? Well, what happened was I was out talking about stuff like PERS reform, and I had spoke out against the vaccine mandate they were trying to pass pre-COVID. Remember that? And it had created, my comments, one guy had created such a ruckus that things were exploding. And then Arnie Roeblen overheard that the Republicans might walk out, and he put two and two together. I got blamed for something I had nothing to do with. I had no idea that year they were going to walk out. I thought it was great. He said, "Well, we're walking out." I go, "Well, it's about damn time."
Right.
So they walk out, they go to Idaho, and then they email me and they say, I'm sure I wasn't the only one they emailed, but I was one. And they said, "Okay, what do we do now?" And that goes back to the Rhino comment. Like,
Right.
What the hell? What do you mean? So, I mean, I literally emailed, "You take it in trade. PERS reform. No vaccine mandate. Gun law dead. What was the other one? The green thing, capital, whatever. Gone."
Right.
And they did every one except PERS reform. And that's because the turncoat Rhino Republican, Tim Knope, had already worked a deal where he was going to get millions of dollars to his little district outside of Bend if he would shoot down or vote for a very crappy PERS reform that has now cost the taxpayers an additional $35 billion and is now, once again, after so many years since 2018-19, is now beginning to bankrupt schools again.
Yeah.
Good job.
Right.
I know.
The sound you hear is the sound of a head being slammed against the wall repeatedly, waiting for something different to happen. Yes.
Well, so I mean, I've had a vicarious experience with Oregon government. See, I came out publicly and opposed them. Remember when I got rid of masking and gave parents their rights back in the school district, Valsey? Boy, I got on the national news. I'll tell you, if you want to try to hide now, it's tough to hide out when that happens.
And you weren't in a big district either. I mean, they knew where you were. So
no, I was in a tiny district, and I used that to our advantage. But remember, we had no COVID outbreaks, and then we were the first new test to stay before the state did. Remember that? They lost their crap, and I was literally helping the health department write better COVID policy. Why? Because I knew it was going to be disastrous for kids. I mean, I can go on and on. We're going to do a whole show on that. I'd love it. People would just be on the edge of their seat listening to just the idiocy of our government during that time. But I got a letter from Colt Gill after he sicked OSHA on us because he filed a complaint as the head of the Department of Education. Did you know that? He filed it. He was so concerned. Nobody in LC filed a complaint. Right. Nobody from Coos Bay filed a complaint. I didn't see anyone from that crazy, what's it called? Malheur, Edge of the Earth County, right? No one from there. But by God,
the cows didn't get the letters, man.
No, they didn't. But Colt Gill was so worried about kids in LC not being in masks that he sicked OSHA on us. And here's my point: is he wrote a letter and he said it was the most threatening thing, everything that was going to happen to me, that the union was going to come after me, I was going to get sued, I was going to lose my license, and all this stuff. And then I responded. I waited. And then he said, "You have 8 days to comply. You have 8 days. You're bad." So I told my secretary, I said, "Look, set all these things we received," because I also got a separate letter from the OEA and from the county and you name it.
Right.
I even had a federal agency I'd never heard of send me a threatening letter. I read that one on Lars Larson. That was fun. On the eve of the 8th day, I stayed late. I finished at 10:30 at night. I emailed Colt Gill, and I went through all of the evidence on why masking was harming kids because the science had been produced by then. I then said, as a moral and ethical superintendent, the Oregon statute is very clear that I have a conscience exception. And as a man who believes in equity and believes in the rights of parents and children to be healthy, I cannot look at this evidence as a trained scientist, because I have a biology degree, I'm a science guy, and keep kids in masks that I know are harming them. So we're not going to. nor should any other school district in the state. You are willfully keeping kids in masks, and you know they're harmful. He responds with, well, first of all, Mr. Thielman, if you think I'm unethical, I've turned myself in to the Ethics Commission. Okay, is he 5 years old, Rob?
Right.
Then he wrote, and now at the end of my letter to him, I said, now, because I believe in equity and I believe in fairness, you gave me 8 days to get kids back in masks. You have 8 days, Colt Gill, to get the rest of the state to comply with ALC policy. Now, who talks to the government like that? I do. Right. On the 8th day, they announced the end of masking. That's what activism can do if you're willing to lose.
Right. And you got to be willing to lose.
You have to, all you're going to do in this state, it's so corrupt, it's so one-sided. You have to lose in order to win.
Right.
And that's the toughest piece for people to understand. So,
weren't you were still in compliance because of the small amount of people. You were still in compliance, weren't you? Because
the masking affected all schools, whether you're open or not.
Okay.
And I gave parents their rights back. Rights that should never have been taken away from them.
Right. Well, it was an emergency. We had an emergency, man.
There you go. Slave labor, right? Indentured servitude with liability protection. So, indentured servitude with no accountability. That almost passed this corrupt, backwards legislature. Okay? And that is where policies like abortion 28 days after birth come from. These people have they can't do it. They need to go. We need to help.
Abortion 28 days after birth, we call that murder. I mean, what are they waiting for? Till the kid's old enough to go to McDonald's and have a Happy Meal? I mean, geez.
That nearly passed in New York and California.
Oh, wow.
And it will be back. So this is what I'm saying. There's no boundaries. It's not pedophile. It's minor attracted person. And the thing is, they cooked it in over the years, and they duped Republicans into going along with it. That's what's sad about this. So, grassroots people, we have a job to do. See? Now, I'm not a wealthy man. I lost all my savings. I lost my entire career. Okay? I paid a massive price for what I did. I'd go back and do it again.
Yep.
Because I believe in a clear conscience. I have zero regrets. There's a couple of things I might do a little slyer, a little more stealthy, in hindsight.
Right.
But no one ever said I was wrong.
In fact, you have been proven right with all the latest studies that have come out saying we never should have shut down the schools. We never should have shut down the economy. We never should have forced masks. We never should have forced vaccines. All of that, everything we were saying, Mark, has been proven 100% true, and nobody has apologized yet for it.
Well, just so people understand how fair our system is. So Colt Gill turned himself into the Teacher Standards and Practice Commission. Anthony Rindeles was the director at the time. I, too, was turned in by God and everybody. I got so many "you've been turned in" letters. It was like, another one?
Yeah.
I literally didn't even read them all. I think there's one still open. It's been years, right? I'm still under investigation. 4 years on, three plus going on 4 years later.
Yeah.
Colt Gill had his entire investigated and ruled on and dismissed in 2 weeks. Now, does that seem fair?
No.
Does that sound like corruption? It's almost like Hunter Biden getting a sweetheart deal, then the judge ruined it. God. It was a lady, too. See, I knew it. Their DEI didn't work on that.
Who was it who just gave the speech at the RNC? McNamara, wasn't it? He just got out of federal prison.
He did, yeah.
And I love that speech. They wanted me to turn on President Trump, and I didn't do it. And look at what he's lost. He literally lost his freedom. And yet Democrats have done the same exact thing. Hunter Biden is guilty of the same exact thing, and not a word. Nothing happens.
Well, but here's my point. Why 2 weeks? Why was his moved ahead of everyone else's when they are so clear their policy is we take them in order unless it's one of the, you're sleeping with kids or something. They have a list of exceptions. Colt Gills did not fit. He wasn't sleeping with any kids as far as I know. I mean, he may have been, but not that I knew of. But it could have happened. But anyway, my point is his didn't fit into that exception thing. Yet he gets his process within 2 weeks. Why? Because he's thin-skinned.
Right.
If you want to get under the skin of these people, expose them.
Yep.
And that's what I did. Now, I sent that letter when I sent it to Colt Gill that night to 300 plus people. I sent it to a janitor in the state library that I looked up on the internet, the email of. And here's the best part. That was one of the smartest things I ever did, because that janitor, apparently very conscientious, read their email that morning and said, oh, this can't be for me. And then they sent it to the supervisor, who then sent it to the director of the library, who then sent it over to Ellen Rosenbaum's office, who then sent it to the governor herself. Now, I'd already sent it to the governor's assistant, but they don't check their email.
Right.
And the government crapped their ever-loving pants. How dare he? How dare he talk to us like this? Next thing you know, I get calls from lobbyist friends of mine telling me to watch my back and what the hell did you do?
Right.
So I sent them a copy of the email. Okay? And this is my whole point. We are living in a tyranny, and it is being orchestrated by literally the dumbest human beings to ever hold power. And they're right here in Oregon. And it needs to stop. That's why I appreciate
people will go, well, if they're so dumb, how are they able to get away with this? And it's like, well, they're working within a corrupt system that allows them to get away with it and then punishes anyone who questions the system that they're working within. Here's
how it works. If you are not controllable in either party,
right,
you're going to be marginalized. You will be opposed. If you're not going to toe the party line, they don't want you. So they actually prescribe when they look for candidates in open districts, Senate, state level, even down to county. The left is very cunning. They will look for people who are supposedly a cop. You ever had a bad doctor? I've had doctors that I had to tell them, no, I think I have an infection because I have an oozing abscess on my face.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little red, but come back, take some Tylenol. You ever had one of those?
Oh yeah. Stop looking in my ear. I got a sprained ankle. Yeah, totally.
You get my point. So they look for people like that, like Steiner, Hayward, what's her name? The one that wanted the vaccine thing. And then it blew up in her face, right? Because the superintendent showed up and said, look, if you pass this, let's talk about what you're not talking about. If you pass this bill, that's I'm going to have to say to this grandmother who has 2 grandchildren that can't be vaccinated. They're allergic to whatever's in it. I'm going to have to say to some of her grandkids, you get to come to school, and some of the other ones, you don't get to come to school. And this is the United States of America. I said, what about illegal migrant kids, right? I said, because Oregon law says we're not supposed to ask any health questions from migrant kids. We don't have to have health records. We don't even have to really know who they are. But we do if they're other kids.
Right.
Not if they're non-citizens. And so I made those 2 points, and it blew that bill died. Granted, the walkout killed it for good, but that bill never would have passed. And but what I'm trying to say is those are the reasons why I went out and ran for governor on my own as a grassroots candidate. And I got no Republican Party support, other than they threatened to sue me 3 times. So various other things. And the whole point is I would argue I had good policy solutions in my governor platform. I'm just saying. I'm just balancing it all out.
Mark, you got in so much trouble with the Republican Party. When I got in trouble with the Republican Party, you know what someone told me? Oh, they're giving you the Marc Thielman treatment.
Yes.
Boy, that must be really shitty.
Yes,
I know what they've done to you.
Well, I remember when I won the Dorchester straw poll.
Right.
I did that on purpose. I did that on purpose to teach Republicans a lesson. And what happened was I had gotten masking restrictions lifted. So then the Dorchester board, I had two people that actually liked my candidacy because of that, two grandmas. Yeah. And they literally twisted the arms of these wacko rhinos, saying, we're letting this guy come to Dorchester. So then the director calls me, the Carson Oil guy. Yeah. And I said, yeah, I'll pay $8,000 for a full sponsorship, and they needed money to run the thing. And of course, I get off the phone, we get off the meeting, and my campaign manager is like, well, Mark, we have the money, but geez. I said, no, trust me, we have to pay the full amount because if we do so and we do a sponsorship, we buy some hotel rooms, then they'll have to answer our email questions.
Right.
And Vicky, my campaign manager, she paused. She's a very bright lady, incredibly smart. And she put it together right away. I go, and I told her, I said, get with Jeanette and set them up. Did you know that they tried to change the voting rules on the eve of the Dorchester debate? Because
that doesn't surprise me. Oh, and by the way, anyone who doesn't know what the Dorchester Conference is, because there are people here who they're not involved with the Republican Party. This is where all the old establishment and the rhinos get together to rub elbows and tell each other how wonderful they are and how they're doing such a great job in Oregon. And they're the fat cats of the party. They're not the grassroots. And you literally went in there and well, you walked in there balls blazing. Okay, excuse my language.
So they saw the inevitable coming, because over the course of the 3-day conference, my campaign, there were I'm with Mark stickers everywhere. I had done multiple speeches in side meetings, and I resonated with people, and so they met before the debate. They changed the rules that said any attendees that weren't registered for the full conference can't vote.
Oh,
you see, we had asked the question, if people show up for the debate dinner and they buy the dinner, can they vote? And the rule was, yes, they can. So what happened was suddenly 200 and some odd people showed up, 180 of the 200, big Marc Thielman fans. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how that happened. But so then they had to change the rules. And when my staff confronted them and said, no, you don't, they said, we don't have anything that said that we would allow that. See if you can have it in writing. Well, what do you think? We brought paper copies of every email. So we just went through the stack, pulled out the email. Here it is. And they changed the rule back. I won the straw poll by the largest margin in Dorchester, which started in 1950.
Right.
In Dorchester Conference history. How do you like them apples?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And the tactic you took was great. And like you said, the manager, she had to have known as soon as that light was flicked on, we're going full bore on this one.
Oh, she was amazing. Yeah, she's organized. She's an organizer, all campaign managers. She had it all airtight. It was hilarious.
And I bet you pissed off a lot of those white collar people there. I mean, you know what I mean? I bet you ticked off some really savvy people there. I can only imagine, and I don't want to mention names.
Well, I walked out with 1,000 more votes for my thing. But the beauty of it is, I did piss them off. But my best was I got tipped off by what's the guy? He's the gay guy. He's the commissioner up in Clackamas, Ben West. His parents tipped us off that they had overheard that they had a gotcha question for the debate to shut down Marc Thielman. And my campaign manager, she's a praying lady, and she got our group together and she prayed for God, to cover us and all this. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's great. Mm-hmm. And she's very serious about it, very serious prayer. And we leave from the prayer area. We're going over to the debate. And she said, Mark, are you up for this? I said, well, Vicki, let me just tell you a little story. I said, this may seem arrogant, but after everything I've lived through, I've been to a lot of straighten out Marc Thielman meetings, and I've received a lot of straighten out Marc Thielman questions over the years, and I haven't seemed to be straightened out yet. Mm-hmm. And what was funny is they asked the question, and it was some policy question about an action, executive order that Kate Brown had written. I can't remember the subject even. And I knew it was the gotcha question because I was in order, and after the fourth question, I was first up. See, And it was hilarious because I remember looking left at some of the other candidates and, Bridget Barton and others, and I could see that they had no clue how to answer the question. And I thought, oh God, this is going to be fun. Man, I not only answered the question, I extrapolated on the question. And then I explained to him, this is why she wrote the order. This is the real reason she wrote the order, and it had to do with every other candidate answered that gotcha question with, well, like Mark said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Ditto. Ditto over here. Ditto for Mark.
Well, but I'll postulate this. So there's no question I have an affinity and a talent for politics, for thinking. I understand the minds of the progressive and the left. I understand that's how I survived all those years doing all those things without getting indicted, without getting arrested, without losing my license, right? And believe me, I was under investigation 17 times over just as many years, and they were all dismissed. So I want people to understand that it was not my first rodeo. But the thing is, what would happen if we unified, if we took a page out of Donald Trump's book in the RNC convention, and we sat down with some of our rhino compatriots, and we acknowledged our disagreements and said, let's find a horse to back that we can all support so that we stop this Dorchester style horse crap. See what I'm saying?
Right.
That's going to be one of my projects moving forward over the next 2 years is I'm setting a goal to attempt to unify the Oregon State Republican Party. If we can do that, I think we can definitely overcome. All we have to do is continue pushing on the integrity because it's already harder for them to cheat.
Right.
You notice your elections clerk, unlike the Democrat appointed one, she's actually maintaining the voter rolls to the best of her ability. Right. Little does she know they just moved to an inactive list that can be mysteriously activated at any time and you need a vote.
Right. Yeah. They put it in, they take the names out, they put the names in, and they do it from the state level. Right.
And you can turn your ballot in 14 days after the election as long as the county clerk accepts it. No questions asked. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it is a good one. Rayla's giving me some good stuff, but we're probably going long because I'm like, it's dark out now, and I'm like, oh my God.
I know, but it's breaking.
Oh, I'm enjoying this. This is good. And that's the nice thing about a podcast and not having a radio. I don't have any hard stops, and I can go as long as I want.
Well, I'm just trying to outdo Trump's acceptance speech. That's not going on forever.
All right.
But listen, if anybody's listening to this live or people that might view it later, a couple of things. Obviously we're tongue in cheek and we're having a little bit of fun. But I don't hate the people on the left. Okay. I'm related to a lot of them. I do take pity on them because their minds are limited. They're self-limiting people that hate accountability, that would rather believe in unicorns and pie in the sky, and that would rather believe that everyone thinks and acts like they do. Because there were some pretty privileged progressives in your county commissioner meeting.
Yeah.
They were all full of themselves because they've got it going on. These are the same people that thought, well, homeless people won't throw trash on the ground if we provide them multi-million-dollar garbage cans.
Right.
They have to be multi-million because when we put plastic ones out, they all ended up in the road. We have to put cans that are bolted to the sidewalk next to the homeless camp that they can't destroy. So they have to be made of, 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch steel. And we're going to paint them really cool, pretty unicorn colors. And we'll even get elementary kids to come and put their little stickers on them. And by the time you're done, you're out $80 million in Portland and all the trash is still on the road anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
That is the kind of policy that limited thinking creates, and it needs to stop. We lost checks and balances in this state because of mail-in balloting. We have to get checks and balances back if we're ever going to value each other for the roles that we need to play. The left has been in charge too long. They've done too much damage. And literally, Oregon was closed. I had to get the schools open in order to have sports. So I told my board chairman, I'm going to do some stuff. And I don't have time to do it right. So you got to back me and you have to stick with me. And he begrudgingly said, okay, just do what you got to do because we got to have football. Okay. I went through holy hell. I launched some stuff with Eugene School District. I accused them of, I said, you are not serving federalized special ed kids, my daughter. I said, I'm going to file a complaint in Kansas with the Civil Rights Division. And you've already finagled the money because I'm a school superintendent. So I knew where the money was going. They'd already paid the ESD to provide the service. And then they were claiming full attendance for kids that weren't attending and they weren't serving.
Oh, wow.
These are special education kids that didn't get served. Oh, they're still trying to clean it up. You're welcome.
Oh, wow.
Oregon. So by the time they were starting to crap their pants, I said in a Zoom meeting to the director in Eugene School District, I said, look, we can go around all you want. I said, when are you going to let me help you? And they're like, what? I said, this is going to go public real quick because I was running for governor. Or you're gonna send a letter out at beginning of Christmas break saying that you will be open for limited in-person instruction for special ed kids in mid-January. I'll give you a month because I'm a reasonable guy. And this is going to happen so my daughter will get served because you're not serving my daughter and she qualifies for everything. She's highly disabled. They did that. Obviously, that goes to the Department of Education. There was a stream of lawyers. I sent this email out. It was hilarious. I sent an email and I used their own words from the meeting in it and did the same thing. Sent it to all God and everybody, some guy in Montana even. And they couldn't put it back together. So there was a meeting of governors on the first night of winter break, 12/19. And I had sent in a whistleblower complaint to protect myself on the 18th of December, 2020. Okay. If you guys recall, it was over that winter break time that there was a surprise announcement starting in Washington, followed by Oregon and then California, that school districts would have the option to open in January. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
3 states. I had no idea it was going to go that far. I just wanted my daughter to have an education.
Right.
Basic federal statute required things. And I knew that once schools were opening, then we could have sports, and it worked. And this is the thing is, much must be risked in war. But if you're fighting with the right reason, just like Donald Trump getting up and doing this after he got his ear shot, damn near got killed. See, I'll take that over Joe Biden disappearing with COVID.
Right.
Any day of the week. So, patriots, gird your loins and start stepping up. Start asking those questions in those county commission meetings. Meet with your county election clerk. Don't be mean to him, but say, hey, could you help me with this? Why am I hearing that there was a mom in Lane County who votes for her 5 children, signs their ballots, and they get counted every year? Right. Could that happen? Ask her. Could that possibly happen in Coos County? How would you know? They don't know.
I'll even go one further for you. I wasn't looking for voter fraud, but I was investigating a senator here, David Brock Smith.
Yep.
And he was getting lots of money from a Democrat who lived in Gold Beach.
He's not
so for some reason, I'm thinking, why don't I check this Democrat out? And I come to find out he's got this summer home in Gold Beach, but he's got a regular home in San Francisco, California, where he's registered as a Democrat and he's registered an independent here. And he's been voting since 2012. And I turned him in and they said because he didn't vote on the same day in 2020, there's no law against it.
Oh.
I couldn't believe that. And then in 2018, the statute of limitations were done, even though he voted in a general election, which was the same day.
That's my point.
In both states.
Yeah. Okay. That's my point. What a dumb thing to say when general elections are all on the same day.
Yeah.
When federal candidates and state candidates on the same ballot. But don't worry, those illegal people, even though they get their ballot because they got their driver's license, they can't vote in a federal election, even though the federal candidates And we know they don't know the difference.
Right.
It is absolute lunacy. Sit down with your election clerk, folks, and just ask, and be so calm about it. Okay, you want to be like the little skinny white kid who went on to the large body support group.
Yeah.
And these were transgender large body support thing. And he said, hey, I'm a transgender female and I identify as 385 pounds. And they're like, well, you got to get out of this meeting. And he's like, yeah, but I identify as a female. And this kid, man, he stayed in character. And it went on for several. I mean, I was dying. I damn near drove off the road. I was laughing. Not that I watch TV while driving. No one does that. Okay. But it was funny.
Yeah.
Take a page out of that kid's book and have a good time with it. Okay. And I'm telling you, it has an effect on these people.
Yeah.
They get so afraid they start to do the right thing.
You remember the teacher from Canada who put on the big bazoombas, and he was the wood shop teacher, and which, you're looking at it going, well, that's dangerous. You're in wood shop and you've got those things on. And he went along with it for, I don't know how many years he's gone on with this.
He was good.
And he's messing with you. And
yeah,
it's like, you're that stupid.
He stopped wearing those. Did you know that? He quit. He's back. He was like, man, did I have a great time. Not only could they not fire me, I could teach whatever I wanted.
Right.
Why? Because they removed all accountability in Canada unless you say something the government doesn't like. Or you drive a protest and you have a bank account. That's called tyranny.
Yeah.
It's a tyranny we cannot allow in Oregon. Absolutely engage patriots, have some fun, and do give some thought. When you see me out working to unify the party, go with it. We can have our differences and still work together.
Right.
It's that important.
And it is that important. And if I have to work, and this is, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm an activist. My goal is to change policy. That's what I'm here for. Otherwise, I'm just spinning my wheels. It's, you can talk about saving the whales, but unless you actually save a freaking whale, what have you done? Right. And so this is something I try to get through people's heads, Yeah. Okay. Or now. Yeah. And so it's just absolutely ridiculous that we're on the verge of a social collapse, literally social collapse, because there are so many people who are so confused on both sides of the aisle that nobody is believing anything anymore, no matter how true it is. And it's sad because you and I, like I said, we're just looking for the truth. We want to hear the facts from all sides, and we're going to let it fall wherever it falls based on those facts. And still people, like you said, you showed them a graph, they'll never believe it.
Let's end with a classic Marc Thielman while running for governor over in Prineville story.
Okay.
I was confronted by Oregon Fish and Wildlife, somebody. They had the little greeny suit and all that. They were at my little Republican rally in a funeral home in Prineville. And of course, I started off by saying, look, people are dying to get in this meeting. So can everybody move forward? Because there's a waiting room out, big crowd trying to get in. I had the funeral jokes going. And this person confronted me about a frog. And that's why they had to drain the Wickiup Reservoir. And, they cited a drought. And the reason I triggered him is I said, there is no drought. I said, just look up the rainfall records for the last 3 years in the high Cascades. It's been very good, average or above average. So they're lying to you. The government is lying to you. And that triggered this guy. And he started talking about this frog. Some named it. It's local people knew about it. And that's all dying, right? This frog's dying. And I said, oh, I know that frog. I said, they have that frog at the Oregon State Zoo up in Portland. He's like, well, yes. I said, well, yeah, but they're breeding like frogs up there. And he goes, what? I go, yeah, my son works there. So they you have fish hatcheries. They do a frog hatchery. And man, they got tadpoles up the inner. They have more. They kill them because they're too many damn frogs. You can't. There's not enough zoos around the world that'll take them. Now, I said, well, so why don't you just hatchery up the frogs? And this guy, it had never crossed his cerebral cortex. I then followed up and said, it's like the spotted owl. In the late 80s, you killed an entire logging industry, disrupted hundreds of thousands of people, spent hundreds, billions of dollars in offset payments. And now it's been, 20 some odd, almost 30 years. And man, we should have owls in every freaking tree. And
right.
What do you mean? They're almost what? There's fewer owls now? But you've done all this work to preserve. They're lying to you. Government can't do it because the culture is so ossified. Who would have thought that you could take eggs from frogs, put them without predators? Oh, he came back and said, well, you can't do them like hatchery fish because they genetically get altered. I said, well, fine, go down to the river and dig a trench into a back swamp and regulate the level of the back swamp,
right,
to simulate high flow time and put the frogs in it. Duh. It turns out that in wild, those frogs breed in back swamps and they need high water to fill them.
right.
So keep them full, people. This is not, listen, we are so smart. We human beings have such huge capacity. We can solve a myriad of hard problems with a little common sense and some continuity of culture.
Yeah.
That guy was not in the wildlife department to save wildlife. He was there to defend the department.
Yes. Defend the policy.
Not to solve problems and to create animals for all of us to go hunt and shoot. Because look, these are the same morons that brought the freaking turkey, the rat of my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I got turkeys that compete with my pigs for food.
Yeah.
And I don't want the turkeys. They're not my turkeys. I called the wildlife people, said, what are you going to do? They were like, well, if they're a problem, you could shoot them. Well, what happens if someone reports me? Well, then we'll have to investigate. Well, screw you.
Right. And they have the call. They can have the call to use against you, right?
I live in a neighborhood of 5-acre lots. It's possible someone could see me shoot a turkey in my front yard.
Right.
Out of season. This is my point. Our government is so screwed up. What would happen if we had enough clear-thinking people that had their egos aside? I would rather solve problems. I would rather have good policy. And here's the funny thing is, the very next spring, from my gubernatorial campaign and my defeat, I got in the top 6, though that was pretty cool. Okay, I was the only grassroots guy to get in the top 6. Did you notice that? I had the lowest.
Actually, I did. Yeah.
I had the lowest dollars per vote ratio in the top 7 candidates. So,
and you got endorsed by Kevin Starrett and Lars Larson, right?
Yeah. Well, I was his runner-up pick. He picked Bridget Barton, and at Dorchester, she made that a big deal. And then, of course, I was a couple candidates down from her, and I said, I want to thank Bridget for celebrating Lars's endorsement. I was his runner-up endorsed guy. I said, and it's okay, Bridget. Lars has been wrong before. And of course, the whole room just busted up laughing. See, and this is my point. Being effective at communicating, being lighthearted. I'm not being braggadocious. All I'm saying is these things happened, and this was my experience. And I confronted ossified government bureaucratic thinking. But all of the Republican candidates that year started talking about they didn't believe there was a drought problem. Remember that? Even Christine Drazen said that she would look into it. That reservoir was filled up the next year. Whoa! What?
Yeah.
Full! I mean, docks were floating and you didn't have to drive half a mile to put your boat in. I mean, it was bizarre. The fish were like, son of a whoa.
Yeah.
Dude, we got some room now, man. They had little fish keggers down the far bay. You know what I'm saying? And this is what I'm getting at. Once the lake was full, the farmers could get their water.
Yeah.
And the frog population had a little bit of a bump.
Imagine that.
It turns out that same frog was harmed by no water in the reservoir.
You just can't make this shit up.
No, you can't. This is my point. Look, and I'm not here to disparage the government. Get out of your own way. Pick a problem and solve it. Pick one problem and do a good job with it. Invite people of opposing views to test your solution. And then once you pick your path, believe in it. And then follow the data. It's been 5 years. And now there's an assload of frogs. We're getting complaints about this endangered frog in everybody's backyard.
They're too loud.
We've been too successful. You see, wouldn't you rather have that?
Yeah.
All right.
I know.
By the way, the turkey is not native to Oregon.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. We got attacked by turkeys once. Hey, I just want to tell you, I made the mistake of doing the same exact thing that Lars did. I endorsed Bridget, and you were the runner-up.
No.
And when Bridget endorsed Johnson after the election, I had her on the show, and I said, Bridget, if I would have known you were going to endorse Johnson, there is no way in hell I would have ever endorsed her, and I would have endorsed you. That made me so mad she did that shit.
Oh, God, that was funny. Yeah, Johnson called me. I didn't do it. Sorry. Wouldn't endorse her. And I didn't endorse her because she had a chance to save that good PERS reform. I had created a solution that the government's own analysts, they were so marveled and amazed by the solution. They wanted to meet the brilliant statistician. You know, the Dr. Frank style guy that was so smart that they solved a problem the government couldn't solve. And when they found out I was the superintendent of the 11th smallest school district in the state of Oregon.
Yeah.
And then they said, why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? And I told them, you're bankrupting my school. We need to solve this PERS problem so I can pay my teachers more. So I can get computers for every kid.
Right.
I mean, and they looked at me like I was some kind of crazy a-hole. We got to stop this guy. He wants to get a computer for every poor kid in LC. Even the homeless ones. This guy's got to be stopped. Christine Drazen, get after Marc Thielman. Stick the party on him. Thank you. Okay, this is my whole point. We got to knock it off. It's time to stop. Anyway, Rob, I got to go, man.
I understand. This has been really wonderful. And before you go, just take 2 minutes to tell us about Battleground Oregon and promote the hell out of it.
Okay, so Battleground Oregon is a tiny little organization. It's a political PAC, and it was designed to do two things. One is obviously support good candidates like me, and to pick up the mantle of election integrity. And so Battleground basically did two amazing things. One is it said any plaintiff that signs on to the case is not committed to paying for the case. They can donate if they want, but Battleground will raise funds. And I told the attorney, just keep running the negatives and we'll just keep making payments. And we've been able to keep him afloat. And, so we raise money on a monthly basis. I have a team of people that do that. There's a lot of pro-election integrity people in Oregon. They're wonderful. And like I say, we do a lot with a little bit. And what's really cool is we learn as we go. So like our next election integrity case, we will be looking specifically for people who cast their vote and then were told that they had already voted. There were many, many dozens of them this last go around. We're going to go through this next election coming up. I want to make sure that we're going to get the word out. We've already got some people that have called. And from that pool of people, I would like to assemble a list of plaintiffs, and we will file a suit. And then it's going to be very difficult for the state to say you don't have standing when your vote was stolen.
Oh, that's cool.
Powerful. So that's our plan.
Awesome. I love it, man. That is great. I'm going to find out more about that. We'll get you back on to promote the heck about it. Because like I said, you're always a guy who's got your finger in something. There's just, you got a lot. You're like the little boy, clogging the dike, the little Dutch boy. And
annoying as hell, isn't it?
No, we love it, man. But it's a little annoying, but not to us, to the left.
Yeah. Well, just know that when they opened up 3 states, it was over Christmas, right?
Right.
And the state had told us that we could not have Christmas celebrations because it was winter break.
Right.
So at the same time I was working on opening up the schools, I may have accidentally emailed ODE, Scott Nine, the second in charge, and I asked him, hey, I know we can't do like Christmassy stuff, but what if we instead celebrate a teacher? Like we take a teacher and we like make a teacher celebration day. He wrote back an email saying, you absolutely can do that, Mark. You can absolutely celebrate a teacher. So we celebrated Mr. Crow, the shop teacher. And his favorite holiday just happened to be what?
Christmas.
So there on LC, on 12/18, we had Santa Claus, we had elves, we had hot chocolate, we had the whole 9 yards, the whole, like kids watch the movie where you get on the train, go to North Pole and all that, whatever that's called. Yeah,
Polar Express.
I had a conductor go to each class and direct the kids down to the, it was a lot of, isn't that the kind of superintendent we need in this state?
That's exactly what we need.
And I had total permission from ODE to do that. My God, who said government's dumb? You did, Rob.
Right. I think I did. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for coming on, man. This has been a blast. I have really thoroughly enjoyed this.
I got a lot off my chest. I really appreciate it. Go to battlegroundoregon.org. Feel free to donate $10, $20. It all helps.
Thank you. Thank both of you. I appreciate it. And we'll get you back on again, okay?
Yep. I'll say bye to Rayla.
Bye, Rayla.
Bye. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Rob.
All right. Take care, man. Later. Oh, that was cool. That was absolutely cool. He makes being a host of a radio show, that my job is made so much easier by people like that. That's why I have people like him on, because not only are they doing something that's important, they're activists. They're trying to change policy. They're trying to change what's going on in our country, in our state, in our counties. It's amazing. He was a superintendent of a small district, and he made national news. That crap is crazy. That's crazy stuff. And so ask yourself, what are you doing? What are you doing? We're not asking you to do much. There's a lot of things you could be doing just to help out the situation, and there's a lot of situations going on. And you could be part of helping out the situation. Like, we got these turbines moving in. Have you heard about these wind turbines? Yeah, they're going to be the size of the Empire State Building, and they're going to float them 13 miles off the shore of Coos Bay and Reedsport. They're going to float them out there, over 200 of these monsters, and it's going to shut down fishing. And, well, we don't think this is worth it. It's not green. It's not efficient. It's expensive. It's expensive as hell. It's going to cost you and me a lot of money, and it kills wills and birds. Not on our coast, I say. Not on our coast. And if you want to find out more, go to Facebook, Oregonians Against Wind Turbines. We've got a new website, oawt.org, oawt.org. And you can find out more on our website, but go to our Facebook page. And I believe our website is listed, and you can find out a whole heck of a lot more. And we're going to be doing a lot to try to stop these people from bringing in these damn wind turbines because, well, it's dumb. It's absolutely dumb. You know how you know it's dumb? Well, the government is doing it. The government is paying for it. And since the government doesn't have any money, you know what Uncle Sam does? He comes to you and he says, you better give me some money. And if you don't give me some money, I'm going to take your property. I'm going to take your property. I'm going to take your cars. I'm going to put a lien on everything. This isn't compulsion. We're just telling you, we need the money. And they act like mafia. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to burn down your business. That's all. Nothing to see here. So we don't want these thugs in the government telling us to pay for these wind turbines. Because you know why? Unlike oil, wind turbines don't produce any other product except for energy. Think about this. Oil, think of everything that I'm looking at right now. My computer, the light, the blinds, the printer that I have, the desk that I have, all this stuff, most of it has some type of petroleum product inside the plastic that's being made with, or the material that's being made with, the coatings that are on the desk, the sheen from the glass, all of this stuff, petroleum products. Just look around your room. Try to find something that's not made of a petroleum product. You're not going to get that with wind, because wind blows. Wind blows, and we don't want it. No wind turbines. So go to Facebook, Oregonians Against Wind Turbines. Check it out. And
just in case you don't know, there are the proposed leased areas right there. If you can see that top blue square space, that top blue square space is right across from Coos Bay and Reedsport, and then the bottom one is right across from Brookings. Over 270 windmills. The size of the Empire State Building. You don't think that's going to have an effect on our fishing industry, on the animals, the mammals, and the fish that live in the ocean? You don't think that's going to affect them? Because if you don't, I think you're a little loony. I think there's something wrong with you. And if you're the same type of person who'd say, Rob, I don't want any oil rigs out in the ocean. Granted, oil rigs wouldn't be much better because we got plenty of oil and liquid natural gas on land. We don't need to put all this stuff out in the ocean. We need to keep our oceans clean. I know it's a crazy idea. I'm a libertarian either, but I think that we should do everything we can to stop these projects. And you know how you stop these projects? By telling the government to stop spending money for these projects. And how do you do that? Well, we're going to be having a rally against the wind turbines tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow, high noon at the Curry County Courthouse. That's Curry County Courthouse on Highway 101 in Gold Beach. And this is going to be happening at high noon, and I highly recommend you come out. We're going to have signs for everyone. I got a couple of flags left. You know, it's amazing. I got those American flags. I used to have about a dozen of those, and somehow I'm down to like 4. But bring an American flag if you want. It's a beautiful thing to hold your windmill sign and to have an American flag. And hopefully it'll be like today, and there'll be no wind out there. There wasn't hardly any wind in Bandon today, which is nice because the last couple of days, the last wind rally that we went to, which is last weekend in Bandon, I mean, it was so ironic that we were fighting against the wind while protesting wind turbines. I know, I see the irony there, but let me tell you, you don't want these wind turbines. Yes, we got a lot of wind. If we could harness that energy and turn it into free electricity, I would be the first one in support of it. But these wind turbines, they're not going to do it, and the cost to our environment out in the ocean is going to be far greater than the advantages we're going to have of getting that whole 3 gigawatts of energy. That's 3 gigawatts. Woo! Big deal. So come out high noon at the Curry County Courthouse, and then at 2 o'clock, because we only go for about an hour and a half, so about 1:30 we'll travel down to Brookings at 711 Checkville Avenue, and that's Highway 101, basically. The 711 Checkville Avenue in Brookings, Oregon, and you can find out more. Our event is listed at Oregon's Against Wind Turbines. That's on Facebook. You can check it out. It's good stuff there. Really, really good stuff there. And you know, it's that time again that I have to. I can show you President Trump. What a badass president! Even Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg, is even saying, "Wow, this is the most badass thing I've ever seen." This man right here. You just try to compare him to our current presidency. You know, Biden's name has now become a function. Anyone who ever craps their pants ever again is going to say, "Oh, I made a Biden in my pants. I'm sorry, I just had a Biden. I got to go to the restroom." Yeah, anytime you see anyone crap their pants, they're going to start referring it to as a Biden. You just did a Biden. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do a Biden. Would you please get out of here? You smell. And so that's what the name of the president has become. And the name of Trump, man, that's emblematic of a hero, a superhero. And you look at this picture, the guy is a superhero. That is just badass. I've never seen something so badass in my life. And I agree with Mark Zuckerberg. This guy is really badass. And I hope he comes out to be our next president. I love the RNC convention. I think I watched every single night of the convention. I had several friends there who kept sending us pictures. Thank you all. Thank you, Janessa. Thank you, Michaela, for all those wonderful pictures. They were beautiful. I loved them. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, we had Michaela on Monday's show for the opening of the convention, and she did a wonderful job of showing us what was going on there, and it was really cool. I think a few bottles of alcohol got opened. I don't know. I was looking at the people, you know, when you see 70-year-old men
jamming out to a rap song that's being done by Kid Rock. You got to go, wow, what's going on here? I mean, this is just wild. You got 70-year-old guys in suits jamming out to Kid Rock. It was so cool. You had Hulk Hogan there. He got ripped off his shirt. He doesn't look the same as he did 30 years ago, but it's still cool. He's ripping off his shirt, and he's just a monster of a man. Incredible stuff. The Republican Party has gone into a new level, and this picture here, this is taking him to that new level. This guy's a leader. He's a leader among men, and God willing, and I'm not even a believer, but God willing, this man hopefully will be our next president, because I'll tell you what, if not, we're going to be in some serious trouble. I don't know what to tell you. I got to remind you folks that I am sponsored by 3H Tree Service. 3H Tree Service, they do a great job of taking out those trees with surgical precision. Matt and his crew will go in there and take out those trees, pop them at 90 feet overlooking the ocean or a cliff, and he will clear out all the debris and leave you with a beautiful view. I mean, sometimes you get those bad trees. Most trees are good. It's like kids. Most trees are good, but then there's some trees that turn on you. They get bug infested. They can catch on fire. They're a liability. They're like the Antifa tree. You don't want to have those Antifa trees in your yard. Well, who can take those out? 3H Tree Service. 3H Tree Service, they're licensed, they're skilled, they're great people. 541-294-1800. And if you want to check out some really cool videos, go to Facebook and check out the 3H Tree Service Facebook page under 3H Tree Service. And you got to go check out those videos. It's just cool. Those guys are doing a great job out there. And I'm so thankful they are my sponsors. Wonderful people, wonderful friends. Couldn't highly recommend them anymore. And Tom and Gigs, Tim from Tom and Gigs, he does a bang-up job on fixing up your cars, your trucks. If you got a problem and you have automotive needs, we all have automotive needs. We all have needs, especially automotive needs. Go see Tim. He can take care of you. He can put a light bar in your car. He can fix your light, fix your mufflers. He can align your car. He can get you a tonneau cover or side rails. Whatever you need, he can do it. Go to Tim from Tim at Tom and Gigs, 135 South Shoneman. That's 135 South Shoneman Street, Tuesday, Oregon, 97420. Why do I give you the zip? What? Like you're going to need the zip. I don't know. That was crazy. But 135 South Shoneman, right behind the car wash. You know where the car wash is. It's in the Empire neighborhood. Anyone who's ever been to the Empire neighborhood, you know where the car wash is. Right behind the car wash, you can find Tom and Gigs. I highly recommend it. And let me tell you, they got these really cool remote control cars. If you got kids, you got grandkids, and you want to get them a really good gift that will teach them the skill of working with motorized vehicles, these little electric vehicles, they're really cool. They can learn about suspension. They can learn about electronics. This is a beautiful thing. And they run remote control. And they're really bad at what these little things can do. I mean, they got the 4-wheel drive little RCs. They got planes and helicopters. I haven't been over Tim in a couple of weeks, so I don't know what he's got left over there, but I highly recommend it. And all your automotive needs, go to Tom and Gigs. And Herbal Choices, for anyone who has those herbal needs. And I understand. I get those herbal needs as well, and you want a place that you can go that's friendly, has bright lights, that you feel safe when you're going in the door, walking out the door, going to your car. That's the kind of place I think we ought to have for your herbal needs. So go to Herbal Choices. They have 5 stores. They have one in South Bandon. They have one on northbound Highway 101 in Coos Bay. They have one on the southbound lane and North Bend coming off of the bridge. You can see that Herbal Choices there. Beautiful store there. They have one in Charleston, and they've got one in Reedsport. So all your herbal needs can be taken care of by Herbal Choices. They're the dispensary of my choice, and I highly recommend them as well. Oregon Firearms Federation. Kevin Sterrett is doing a bang-up job. I need to get Kevin on the show. There's always so much going on with our Second Amendment. I need to get him back on the show. He's like an expert
political therapist. You know, I'm a political therapist, but he's like at a whole other level political therapy. And every now and then I got to call him and say, Kevin, I don't know. I think I'm off on something here. I need your expertise. And I'll tell him the problem, and he always has a great answer. Kevin is a wise man. And I'll tell you, I appreciate having him as a friend, and he has done an incredible job in the last 30 years for the Oregon Firearms Federation, fighting back against those who want to take your Second Amendment rights. And they do want to take your Second Amendment rights. Don't believe the nonsense, oh, we're not after your guns. No, really. Yeah, right, that's a baloney. These are the same guys who wanted to shove vaccines in your arm, and they wanted to force you to wear a mask. These are the same people who want to take your guns. You know, like Mary Gedry at the last county commissioners meeting. He was upset because people were open carrying at the last commissioners meeting. Now, I don't know about her, but I've gotten a few death threats. And since I don't got arms like Hulk Hogan, I've got to give it to some type of protection, because people on the left, the side that she comes from, they've threatened me. They've threatened my life. They've threatened my family. They've threatened my livelihood. And I'll tell you what, nobody should be threatened, and everyone has a right to protect themselves. Everyone has a right to self-defense. So I highly recommend, if you've got a little extra, please give to Oregon Firearms Federation. Go to OregonFirearms.org and sign up for their alerts. He'll give you a lot of alerts telling you what's going on all across the state and the nation. Incredible stuff. Got to give kudos to Oregon Firearms Federation, the only no compromise gun group in Oregon. And they're not my sponsors, but I like to promote them. Banding Gun Club, if you want to go out and practice with your pistol, or, you know, try out the 5-stand trap shoot. If you have a trap rifle, you don't even need a trap rifle. I've been out there with my field rifle. I got a double barrel shotgun. I call it my Elmer Fudd. Any of you who are familiar with the Looney Tunes, you know what I'm talking about. The old Elmer Fudd. I got one of those. I've taken that out there and actually had a hell of a time. A blast, literally a blast at the trap shoot. And it's a beautiful place. The Banding Gun Club, pistol range, bandinggunclub.org. I once again couldn't recommend them anymore. They are just an incredible group of people. And if you're in Bandon and you need to practice or hone in your pistol skills, they're the place to go. And if you got a rifle, they don't have a rifle range at the Bandon Gun Club, but they do have one at the Tioga Sports Park Association is running the Tioga Sports Park, and you can find out more at the tiogasportspark.org website. That's where you can find out if they're going to be there, if they're going to be open for the holidays. You know, sometimes they have bad weather or they can't get enough volunteers. There's every now and then their schedules. It's not set in stone. So go to the Tioga Sports Park, and usually they're open on the weekends. Great place, great location. They're right next to the dump. You can't miss it. Right there on Highway 101, right next to the dump. When you turn left going northbound from Bandon, you keep going left. Don't go right to the dump. And if you're coming southbound on 101, you take a right and keep going left. Don't go to the dump. You see there? I totally confused you. I know I did. I don't give directions too well. I don't know. What can I tell you? I don't follow directions too well either. So that's just some of the things I'm doing. And let me tell you what's going on Monday. I've got a guy on that I have been watching for 40 years? Wow, 40 years. This gentleman, he's with a group called Shark Hunters. And you might think, wow, Rob, you're going to have a show about hunting sharks? No. Oak and trim, Fred. We're going to be talking about the end of World War II and how the Nazis escaped to South America. We're going to be talking about the possibility that not only did the Nazis escape, but all of the upper echelons of the Nazis and even Hitler were able to escape to South America. Now, you might think this is a wild conspiracy theory, but the gentleman I'm having on, his name is Harry Cooper, and he is the leader or director of Shark Hunters, and he's going to be on Monday. This is Monday at 3 o'clock. This was a huge thing for me because, like I said, I've been following this guy for a long time. You know, Reagan was a member of Shark Hunters. Did you know that? Ronald Reagan was a member, and Harry Cooper was a friend of Ronald Reagan. So he's going to be coming on talking about how the Nazis, how the Germans, after World War II, ended up in South America. It's an incredible story, and I think you should tune in. This is happening Monday. Yeah, I got some badass guests coming on. And
we're going to keep that up. Next Friday, we're going to have a panel of people here to talk about all the different things that are going on in the state, in the counties, especially the local counties, Douglas, Curry, Coos, even Lane County. We're going to have guests on from many different counties, many different groups who are activists, and we're going to talk about the issues of the day because there's a lot going on and we don't get to cover it as much as we cover a single subject. You know, it was great to have Marc Thielman on, and when I have guests like him, we kind of just stick to a certain subject. Well, you know, there's so much going on, I like to jump around to different subjects and find out what people are thinking. You know what I mean? Because that's how we learn from each other. And you know what I learned most by having these panels on the Friday night rant is that a lot of us who normally agree on one issue, you'll find out they don't agree on every issue. Not all of us are alike, and we have different opinions. It's amazing some of the people and some of the opinions I've heard when we've had those panels on the Friday night rant. So do tune in again next Friday at 8 o'clock. Tune in this coming up Monday at 3 o'clock to watch Harry Cooper from Shark Hunters. That's going to be a really cool show. I am just really excited about that. I've been wanting to talk to this guy for a long time. I was trying to get him on the radio show, and for some reason we just never connect right. And so I got him here Monday live at 3 o'clock. Monday, you can catch me on Rumble. You can catch me on YouTube. And like I said, I promised you guys a really cool video because we're going to be starting a whole new endeavor. We're going to be starting a whole new effort to try to stop some of the shenanigans that are going on into the Republican Party. Now, I'm going to play this commercial, and the song that's on this commercial might interfere with the copyrights on YouTube. So if I all of a sudden get kicked off of YouTube, just switch over to Rumble and you can catch me there. Rumble at Rob Taylor Report. It comes up the same thing. You know, I got kicked off. One of the shows got kicked off of YouTube 2 weeks ago because my guest, Matt Wilbanks, he showed his gun. He showed his gun, put it up to the camera. And for some reason, and I didn't know this, YouTube has a rule that during the live streaming, you can't show any guns. It's so that there isn't a mass shooter out there who will film his mass shooting and be able to use YouTube in a way to highlight his crime. And I kind of understand where they're coming from with that. I think it's a little overprotective. You know, a gun doesn't hurt anyone. And so Matt just happened to show his gun, and that's why we got cut off of YouTube. Just that show. I didn't get a strike, but I do want to tell you, Project 1776 is a new project that I'm working with. We're working with some of the very top-rated people to try to recruit candidates, new candidates for Oregon. That's the problem right now. We've got a lot of Republicans who are rhinos, and they're running unchallenged. I mean, I'll give you an example. Dick Anderson didn't have a primary challenger. We should be having someone who's a true Republican in that Senate district, in Dick Anderson's Senate district. I can't remember off the top of my head which Senate district that is, but Dick Anderson, he votes just like a Democrat. There would be no difference between having Dick Anderson stay in office or having him replaced with a Democrat. He's just as much a Democrat as a Democrat is as far as voting goes. And so we need people to challenge this. And so that's what we're going to be doing with Project 1776. I'm going to play this, and if I happen to get kicked off of YouTube because of copyright reasons, well, you'll understand, but I think you'll enjoy the song. So here it is, folks.
Welcome to the
And you can only find them on X right now. We're using X because we love what Elon Musk has done as allowing free speech back on a social platform. Can you imagine that? Social platform designed for people to communicate with each other, having free speech. Wow, there's an oxymoron, a conundrum, yes. And so we are going to try to recruit the best of the best, the cream of the crop, people who never get supported by the establishment, because just like Mark was talking about, they don't want anyone in office or running for office who can't be controlled. That's the new thing. That's why you see this happening in Oregon, why we get such lousy candidates like Dick Anderson. And we're not going to put up with that anymore. So Project 1776, it's going to be happening. Go and check it out on Facebook. On Twitter, and which isn't Twitter anymore, it's X. So go check us out on X. Beautiful video. Did you like that? Very inspiring. So we got a lot of work to do, folks. This ain't over. It ain't over till the fat lady sings, and I haven't heard the lady get up yet. So we'll find out. We'll find out what's going on. And I hope you join me Monday, Shark Hunters, with Harry Cooper. It's going to be one hell of a time. And until then, folks, carry on, America. Carry on.